Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Well, good morning. I call to order the Station Resource Committee for March and ask for a roll call.
Good morning. Council Member Cacciari.
Here.
Senator Delgado.
I'm here.
Supervisor Mitchell.
Present.
Supervisor Hagman. Board Member Padilla Campos.
Here.
And Chair McCallum.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Committee members, we have one informational item today. We'll move on to that. It's an update on our proposed amended Rule 1111 and 1121. And we'll have a presentation by Heather Farr. Morning, Heather.
Good morning, Committee Chair McCallum, members of the committee. I'm here to present another update on our proposed amended Rules 1111 and 1121. Next slide, please. By way of background, these rules were adopted in 1978. They control NOx emissions for space and water heating appliances. They're really enforced through the supply chain, so manufacturer, distributor, installer. These rule amendments are needed to implement the 2022 Air Quality Management Plan, which seeks zero emission technologies wherever it's technically feasible. We have identified zero emission technologies for both of these rules, and this will be our fourth update to this committee since September. Next slide, please. So the actions that we have taken since the last time we met, we have continued our outreach. We've developed a new one-pager. Just this morning, we sent it out to over 16,000 of our subscribers. We actually featured a zero NOx emission water heater at our showcase during the last board meeting. We've met with each of the manufacturers at least one time, and we held a public consultation meeting that I'll talk about a little bit later. Next slide, please. So as far as our outreach goes, we have held 10 public meetings, have had over 30 presentations to cities and COGs and other organizations. We're scheduling additional meetings in the coming weeks. We've had over 100 stakeholder meetings with the utilities, the manufacturers, environmental and community groups, and we've briefed this committee. This will be, as I said, our fourth briefing. Next slide, please. Just a little bit reminder of what our new rule concept is. Our original concept was to have a future effective zero emission standard. Now we are including an alternative compliance option that will allow the manufacturers to sell NOx emitting and zero emission units starting in 2027 with a target of 30% of those to be zero emission. That target increases over time. And once we get to that kind of final phase in 2026 with a sales target of 90%, but still allowing 10% of those NOx emitting units to be sold. And we're pairing that with a mitigation fee, which will help encourage that transition and also provide funding for our incentive program, our Go Zero incentive program. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about our proposed mitigation fees. We are looking at, for each gas space heater sold, a $100 fee, $50 on water. We are proposing a $500 mitigation fee for those units that are sold over the target, and that we are proposing to increase that by CPI over the years, and proposing a discounted fee for those manufacturers that exceed that target, who sell more zero emission units than is allowed in their sales targets. Just wanted to provide an example of what that would look like. This is our favorite example, is our manufacturer who sells 100 units. Makes for easy math. So if the target is 70 and they sell 70%, 72% of NOx emitting units, that means for that first 70 would be a $100 fee. So we would collect around $7,000 for those. And the 2 units that they sold under with a $500 fee would be $1,000 for those. So altogether, that manufacturer would pay $8,000 in mitigation fees. And then we could use that mitigation money to fund Go Zero to provide $1,000 rebates for up to 8 zero emission appliances.
Question.
Mhm.
Why is the $500 mitigation fee for the appliances the same for the water heater and the space heater? Why aren't they half like the $100, $50?
Yeah, we established those over the target fees at 500 to really kind of encourage the manufacturers to try to meet those sales targets. So that is the current proposal, to have those at the same.
Yeah, but the water heaters cost much less. So if you put this fee on that's higher, could drive up the cost of the water heater. So I was just curious as to why there's $100 for everybody, and for the space heater, and then $50 for the water heater. Why the mitigation fee isn't also half?
Right. That is a good point, and we consider having that. We can consider having that over the target cost be half as well.
Okay, take a look at that, because I think that's more than fair. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Just a couple other proposed changes we want to talk about. I believe we mentioned in the last meeting that we're going to maintain the applicability for 1111 for the space heating. So that will be just for those residential sized units. The larger units we will consider in a separate rulemaking. When it comes to new building standards, we did get requests to delay that a year to align that standard with our manufacturer option. So we are proposing to delay the new building to align it with our zero manufacturer zero alternative compliance option. When it comes to the mobile homes, they have definitely technology challenges. They're a little different than water heaters and furnaces that go into a typical home. They're smaller, so there are additional challenges. So we are proposing to require those units to transition to zero when the mobile home itself is replaced. So new mobile homes today are already being installed electric ready, zero emission. So we're just going to allow that transition to happen when those mobile homes are replaced. And those mobile homes already have a mitigation fee that allows them to sell units at a slightly higher NOx emission than the rule allows. And we're going to lower that fee to align it with our zero emission manufacturer option. And for the high altitude, we're also adding, we were going to phase out of the exemption that allows for downstream furnaces with the transition to zero. But now that we have this manufacturer option that allows for gas to be sold, we're going to allow those downflow furnaces to be sold just at the high altitude. They just don't make those currently. Okay, next slide, please. So comment letters received. This is a hard one to characterize because these numbers change on the daily, on the hourly. You guys are probably aware you're getting comment letters as well. So I would characterize it as this. It is a bit of a mixed bag, but most of the opposition letters that are coming in are saying no mandate. We don't want a mandate. Don't force us to go to zero. So we do feel that our new option does address that. We're being asked for flexibility and we're being provided flexibility. So based on the new concept, we do feel that we are getting overall support for that concept. But as I said, this changes daily.
The new concept isn't being well, they're not receiving it, because I still get a lot of opposition letters from cities and others which should deal with the old concept. And I'm just concerned that we're not re-engaging with all of those people that haven't seen the new concept, and we're getting a lot of opposition still.
Chair, I agree. I get the same. Chair, if I could just add a little bit of information. We've certainly heard what you and the vice chair have just said. And as a result of it, senior staff have been going to city council meetings, have been going to COG meetings, and we're going to continue. We have a number that are planned over the next few weeks. And even when we're in those meetings and saying that there is no mandate, that there is choice, and we go through that, people get up right after and say, this is a mandate. So I understand that people are saying that, and it's not that they're not necessarily not aware of the change, but that is a talking point. And so we are doing our best to make sure that we're getting that information out. We're appearing in person. I think that's been helpful. And we appreciate when the board members let us know when these occurrences are happening. So we're going to do our best to try to at least make that information available and get it out there. We have been working on a series of revisions. One of the flyers that we have that we just put out, I want to say earlier this week, but it might have been last week, is on the myth versus fact. And that too, I think, has been very helpful. So we're continuing to do as much of an education campaign as we can. And I just wanted to share that with all of you. So
Thank
sorry
you.
to
And
take over.
I do want to thank staff for attending the Redlands City Council meeting that was considering a resolution in opposition. And I understand they have put that on hold as a result of your meeting. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor?
Thank you. I probably shouldn't sit way in my other seat because I'm way away from everybody, but I do have some of the same concerns. I shared them with Wayne that the rule numbers itself, 11, 11, 11, 21 is so now, we've been through so many evolutions of what it actually means. There's a tremendous amount of confusion and I get the comment letters, but when I have cities or COGs take opposition, they represent hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people in some cases. So I have to weight them a little bit differently. I think the branding's horrible. I suggest a long time ago, throw those two out, start with a new number because it's completely different language in there than what it was. And so it's going to be hard, as much as the staff is outreaching, to go through to educate on the new system. And I have questions about the new system. I think it's far better than what it was. So thank you very much to the entire team for working on it. There's a lot of hoops for a manufacturer to jump through, a lot of record keeping to go. So many different steps of how much that actual cost is with the filing fee and the record keeping and stuff. How much more? Is it really $100? Is it really $500 more? What are those target rates? Lots of different things, but it is a choice compared to a non-choice before. So in that regard, it has taken a step forward. But the branding is going to be tough. And Mr. Chair, I brought this up at one of our other meetings. We have our SCAG General Assembly, which is where the one time a year where everybody in 5 counties, 192 cities, in theory, everyone goes to one place. And that's on May 1st and 2nd. I know we have a survey who's going to go to it. I kind of have to be there being president. But if anybody from AQMD wants even a booth, if you want a actual scheduled time where this may go out to reach a wider audience in one place, we'd be happy to accommodate that. But we also have that same day supposedly voting on this. I would, one, suggest that maybe put it off to the next month at least, and two, give more time for this education process because it is far better than it was. Again, there's a lot of, I think, tweaks. We could still do this, make it a little more transparent for those who, what are the actual fees, what are the target numbers for the manufacturer. We have different labeling on boxes. We have, tracking serial numbers, where it's going, and even conversion kits. And we have a lot of things going on that some manufacturers say, hey, it's just not worth it. I'm not going to sell the SCAG region or South Coast region. I'm just going to put it out there someplace else. So we're not a national repository, but we're at the beginning of that right now. So I'd love to get some more input from the actual manufacturers. Do they feel this is pragmatic enough for it to go forward? And is it worth it to them to go through all the different steps to have that option still here? But the timing of, with the General Assembly may be an issue as well.
Wayne, did you want to speak to your visit with the manufacturers on the rule?
Well, I did have a chance to meet with the heat pump manufacturers in Sacramento earlier this week, and I spoke with a number of the manufacturers and with representatives. And what I was told was that everyone was good with the provisions of the revisions. They were very thankful for the revisions. There was one concern, though, that was expressed, and that was on the $500 mitigation fee and how that potentially would impact their future in terms of pass-through costs and the like. So that was something that we're going to continue to discuss to address. I think the mayor addressed one of those, suggested one of those provisions, but we're continuing to move that. I think the other important point is that CEC is actually also moving forward in this space. So they're looking to us in terms of a lot of the information, and that was really the nature of the CEC meeting, is that we have been collecting appliance manufacturer data for a number of years, decades, in terms of things that they report.
Mitigation pool is going up to 800 and it's here.
Well, why don't we go ahead with the presentation and we'll come
Just-
back to some of
Mr.
these.
Chair,
other-
just a follow-up for one, just on the serial number tracking, I'm trying to figure out how that would go, because right now, if I go to Home Depot and buy something, are they supposed to now pass that, am I supposed to, is it for me registering as a consumer? Is it Home Depot now registering that product to who's buying it? How does that work?
Everything comes from the manufacturer. And as to the actual serial number, I know that was one of the questions that was under debate by CEC. I would defer to staff on the actual collection of serial numbers. I'm not sure that that is actually necessary, but I defer to staff.
Yeah, we're looking at what we want. We're trying to minimize the impact for that reporting. We do need to be able to ensure that they're meeting their targets, but things like model numbers and quantity sold into our jurisdiction and like the type of unit is what we're thinking about for that reporting.
Sorry, what's CEC?
I'm sorry, the California Energy Commission.
Okay, let's go on with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so I did mention we held a public consultation meeting a couple weeks ago. We had over 200 stakeholders. This meeting went over 4 hours. We received 4 different comments from members of the public, and we could really categorize those comments in kind of 3 buckets. The first one is really this mitigation fee. We're getting strong support to increase those mitigation fees, saying that those fees just aren't enough to influence consumer behavior. Again, others saying just eliminate these fees. We're worried about affordability here. We also had comments about the compliance target where stakeholders wanted us to have a stronger rule, increase those targets, and other stakeholders said, no, we think they're set about right. Let's keep them where they are. And then when it comes to rule adoption and strong support, get this rule passed, and other stakeholders saying, just give us more time to consider. So next slide, please. So again, lots of talk over costs. So we did want to break through. There's really 3 different areas we talk about when it comes to the cost for this rule. The first one is the cost effectiveness assessment, and that's a requirement in the California Health and Safety Code. When we're setting emission standards, this shows the cost per ton of pollutant reduced. And we do have a cost effectiveness threshold that is health-based that we use as a kind of a screening threshold. And any of our rules that are above that threshold, we have to propose alternatives. And the second part is when we're talking about affordability. And this is especially a concern in this rule because these rules will impact the residents. So affordability is a concern. And it's really how much that consumer can afford that product. Has to do a lot with what their income is and really what their values are, what they think is worth spending that money on. And the last piece is our socioeconomic impact assessment. And that is, it is looking at both rules. It considers regional impacts, so increased cost or cost savings, looks at affected industries and small business. It also talks about the jobs, if there are jobs created or jobs foregone. So I'll walk through each one of these different cost concepts in the next slides. Next slide, please. So the first one comes to the cost effectiveness for the zero emission units. And these tables that you see here, we presented at our public consultation meeting. We wanted to provide an update for all the costs to reflect the latest data, so 2024 costs. And these numbers represent the cost for transitioning from what you have at your existing unit to a heat pump. So it doesn't reflect any of the flexibility that we've added in. This is just the cost effectiveness for these different scenarios from single family, multifamily, going from like furnace only to heat pump or furnace and AC to heat pump. And we also have the cost effectiveness here for the water heaters. And as you can see, we do estimate cost savings for several of the scenarios, but when it comes to furnace only in a single family and the water heater, it does show higher cost effectiveness than our threshold in 2024 dollars. Next slide, please. So we did want to break that down into what it would look like with the current concept, with our manufacturer option that allows for NOx emitting units to be sold. It's reasonable to assume that somebody that has a very significant increase in cost, say you are just replacing your furnace only, that they would opt to buy that NOx emitting unit. However, we do know that some people will replace their gas furnace with a heat pump, most likely because they want to add cooling. Heat pumps are great technologies. You get heating and cooling in one appliance. So we did want to apply some of those higher costs for that furnace only in this assessment. And then when it came to those ones on the last slide that showed cost savings, we really just zeroed those out and showed that as just an equivalent cost. So you can see the numbers now, they're all below the threshold. They go a lot higher as the phases go higher, as more people transition to those more expensive units.
Question.
Uh-huh.
I had a hard time going from the other slide to this slide. Why the change, the difference?
Right. The other slide is assuming everybody is going to be required to buy that heat pump. So if you are only replacing your furnace and you go out and you have the choice between buying another furnace for about the same price or spending $8,000 more, we think most consumers are going to make that choice to replace furnace with furnace. So go with that equivalent cost item. Again, we do think some people will make the more expensive choice to replace their furnace and put in a heat pump. Again, heating and cooling at the same time. So it really was that high cost on that last slide that really, was one of the impetus for having this option, for having this compliance option that does allow for the sale of those NOx emitting units.
I'll have to talk to you later.
Gladly.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Pardon?
It's difficult.
Yeah. I totally don't understand it yet, but I'll ruminate over it. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about affordability and choice. And again, the new zero emission manufacturer option does allow choice. It allows the consumers to make that choice between the zero emission and the NOx emitting unit. However, if a consumer did make that choice to purchase and install the zero emission unit, we're just showing what those costs are. We look at a furnace and AC to a heat pump, they're about equivalent. When you look at medians, you'll get different quotes anytime you even at your own home look for a replacement for appliances. But in general, we think they're about equivalent. If it comes to just a furnace only, doing that increase to a heat pump, that is an $8,000 increase. For the water heaters, a regular water heater to a heat pump water heater, that increase is about $2,000. And so some of them have higher upfront cost. These technologies are, though, very efficient. They're very clean. So we do estimate that there's going to be lifetime savings on your utilities by operating these. There's also rebates and incentives out there, just like our Go Zero incentive program that can help bring down those upfront costs.
Some analysis says that it's the increase in utility costs about $4 a month or $48 a year. Is that what we're talking about? That's an analysis I've seen.
That there'll be an increased utility cost from
No.
using the heat pumps?
You're saying that there's an operational cost estimated result in a lifetime savings, utility costs. Some analysis I've seen says it's $4 a month savings.
Saving, okay.
Oh, $4 a month savings. I think it depends on if you're looking at the space or the water. It's not a huge savings, but we are projecting cost savings. And it also depends if you're looking at today's rates or future projections, or in the future, the forecasts do show that gas goes up more than electricity. So yes, it's not a significant savings, but there is savings, monthly savings.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that my information was correct. It's not a huge factor, but it is some savings.
Yes, it's some
Go ahead.
savings. Next slide, please. So last piece we wanted to talk about in the cost section of our slides today is the socioeconomic impact. And we did this assessment for both rules based on achieving 90% that sales target. The manufacturers hit that target in 2036. What would those costs look like? And we did look at two different scenarios. The first scenario is assuming there's no lifetime savings. So you're not saving that $4 a month. There's no lifetime savings. And we do show that there'll be a $174 million cost based on an annual average. Really, the driver for these high costs is because there are so many units. There's 10 million units out there. So just small costs really adds up quickly. But the second estimate is to assume that there is lifetime utility cost savings when converting to those heat pumps. And in that scenario, you show 191 million in cost savings. And it really is that high upfront cost will get offset by some of that lifetime savings. Next slide, please. Then we wanted to talk about job impacts. This is the other big part of our socioeconomic impact, is to look at the jobs. And we do find that high cost rules tend to lead to jobs foregone, jobs that are otherwise not created. Many of these rules, the requirements go on manufacturers or facilities, and they tend to not hire in the future. In this case, all of our manufacturers, they make both the NOx emitting and the zero NOx. So they're going to sell units either way. So a lot of these costs going on the resident. When it comes to if you're going to replace your NOx unit to your NOx unit, there's going to be no cost, no job impacts. But if you're going to choose that zero emission unit, there could be additional installation, maybe electrical work, maybe wiring. So that is looking to create job creation in the construction sector. So based on the analysis, it's showing anywhere from 580 jobs gained to 500 jobs gained. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we want to talk a little bit about some of the key issues. And the first one is that manufacturer target. I mentioned during the consultation meeting, we got feedback that those targets should really be strengthened. However, that first target in 2027, that's not far from now. We wanted to set that where we think the market currently is. And based on studies, there's a U.S. Energy Information Administration that has studies that show how much zero and NOx emitting technologies are sold in the space and water heating setting, and they're about 20 to 30. So we do think setting that first target at 30 is about right. However, the later phases, happen just 2 years later, and they do start increasing those phases. So we do recommend that we keep the sales targets where we have them now. Next slide, please. So the next piece is when it comes to those mitigation fees. And, the last time we were here, we were asked to kind of do some research, see what it would take to change consumer behavior. So the first thing we looked at is if the cost of the NOx emitting appliance and the zero emission appliance were the same, if they were equivalent, like what kind of mitigation fee would it take to raise those fees to make those two units about the same? And we find that for furnace and AC to heat pump, those are actually equivalent costs, which kind of makes sense. We've said before, when you look at national sales, heat pumps are starting to outsell furnaces. And that's probably because that top bucket, those costs are about the same. So that is driving people to put in those heat pumps. But when you look at furnace only, to go to a heat pump, that's again that $8,000 cost difference. So that's a really high cost. For the water heaters, $2,000 for that additional. We just think that would be too high of a point to put the mitigation fee. And then we looked further into studies on what would drive consumer behavior. And we found a study that specific to appliances, that like one appliance is 8% more than another. That can actually drive a consumer to think of maybe this other brand or this other type of technology is something I should consider. So we looked at, after we made them equivalent, what would it take to make them 8% more expensive? And that's that second bucket of fees. Like for the furnace plus AC would be $1,500. For furnace only, $9,500. And for the water heater, $2,500. So next click. And we just think that fails to meet our objectives. We put this option in because we were concerned about affordability. So we think those types of mitigation fees would be just too high. Next slide. And the other ask that we had, we've said, this is a mitigation fee. They should really truly mitigate the additional NOx emissions that will occur from the sale of these units. So we tried to do that analysis as well. We took our cost effectiveness screening threshold and kind of back calculated what kind of cost that higher NOx would be, reflecting that health-based standard. And that would be around $3,000 per unit for space heating and $900 per unit for water heating. And again, next click, we do think that is just too high of a cost burden for consumers. So we are recommending to keep our $150. We'll take your recommendation under consideration about that over the target fee, what that should be for the space and the water. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to remind everybody of the tech check-in. We've talked about this in the past, but we will have that with that manufacturer option. We're going to have great data getting submitted to us. We're going to have sales data. We're going to know how much we're bringing in mitigation. Are the manufacturers meeting those targets? And that first report is due to us March 2028. So we could provide an update to inform the committee on how things are going as far as those targets are concerned, as far as those mitigations are concerned. Next slide, please. Okay, brings us to our next steps. We do have April 1st as our deadline to release our draft rule language and the supporting documentation. Our Go Zero program, we are hoping to launch in spring and currently scheduled for a public hearing on May 2nd.
Thank you. Without objection, I'd like to go to public comment before we come back to the committee, if that's okay.
Well, just because you all were.
That's fine with me, Mr. Chair.
Conversation. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just because and I think I might have the same question you had. So I want to go to slide 5. No, it's 6, sorry. So I'm still unclear on why the difference between the space heating and water heating is different between the 150. Is it because they emit different amount of NOx and that's why you price them different, or why that starting point?
Probably because the water heaters cost less. A water
heating?
heater's around, 3,000 to 5,000, where space is more like 18 to 20,000. So because of that lower cost, we thought a lower mitigation made sense.
Okay,
They're both around like 1 to 1.5% of that, the cost of the units.
okay. I don't know if that's what you were asking earlier too, between the difference. So,
Right.
okay, thank you for that.
And sorry, just for a quick correction, if we're talking furnace only, that's around 11,000.
Okay. And then on February 28th, I remember that we received a presentation on the mitigation fees for units sold over the set target, starting at 500 and then ranging to 800. Are we now receiving a new presentation where there isn't that increase? It's just 500? Or is the
Yes, that is the plan, that we're going to increase that fee over time, but we're going to use that consumer price index as our methodology for increasing that fee.
Okay, so that there is still a progression. It
Yes.
just was, okay, that just wasn't clear to me here. And then I'm just wondering if for the fees, can't we get it a little closer to the cost of the taxes? So then we're sort of not going over, but still being at a reasonable fee. So the taxes of the units, have we considered that? Instead of this sort of $150 number, maybe making it more based on what the taxes would be for the units.
I think it's something that we can consider and get back to the committee.
Okay, just a thought.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to ask those questions.
Thank you. How many presenters or speakers do we have out in TV land? Senator Delgado?
So we have 3
Three there?
Three
and,
speakers live.
Supervisor,
We have 5 here at the Hall of Administration, Mr. Chair.
okay, I'm going to close the public speaking who are lined up for online. We'll close that queue right now. It's at 19, I believe. So we've got 27. I'll limit the time to 1.5 minutes. And we'll start, how many do we have here in-house?
Chair, we currently have 11
11.
commenters. We'll start with in-person, Chair.
Yes, let's start with in-person.
All right, I will be calling out the speaker and also the next person in line to be ready. First speaker is Margie Hills. They will be followed by David Martinez.
Good morning. Get to be the first speaker, yay. Committee members, AQMD staff, and interested members of the public. My name is Margie Hills. I'm a resident of Brea in Northern Orange County. And I'm also a member of the Sierra Club. I'm the vice chair of the Angeles chapter, and which is composed of LA and Orange counties. And I wish to thank the AQMD for improving air quality in Southern California. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, and I can remember many days when we couldn't see the San Gabriel Mountains and you could smell the smog in the air. The air in Southern California has improved since that time, but there is still much more that needs to be done. I am testifying today to urge you to pass Rules 1111 and 1121 with no further delays. These rules will cut the unhealthful pollution from fossil fuel furnaces and water heaters in people's homes. I also want to urge you to pass strong versions of these rules to more efficiently protect public health. Recent revisions to the rules will significantly delay pollution reductions that SoCal communities urgently need. Higher mitigation fees will.
Thank you for your comments. I'm sorry, your time has expired. I would encourage all of you that are going to speak in House here, if you'd line up in the order that you're called so that we can get through this. Otherwise, I'm going to have to reduce the amount of time allowed. So who's next and then who follows?
Next up is David Martinez, followed by Fernando Gaitan.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, do not delay these rules and do make them stronger. We need these rules to lower emissions, improve our air quality, and save lives. These rules have been in progress for over a year, and we cannot further delay them. These rules should also be strengthened by moving up the sales targets. Let's start at 50-50 instead of 70-30, and by increasing the mitigation fees. We should be pricing for the negative externalities that these appliances emit. You've received thousands of emails in support of these rules. Please pass them in May, and please make them stronger. Thank you.
Next speaker is Fernando Gaitan, followed by Yu Shen.
Good morning, Fernando Gaitan with Earth Justice. I'm here to encourage you to stay the course and pass these rules in May. We need them passed. Every delay has resulted in weakening of this rule, and we need this agency to stay the course and make these rules happen. We do want them to be strengthened to really catalyze the type of transition to zero emissions that we need to see. And part of it is increasing that mitigation fee to reflect the true cost of NOx emissions. Even we heard 1% per unit was the proposal. Even increasing it by 3% per unit would get you a significant increase in the type of money that could go to Go Zero program. By one calculation, it's about $70 million that will be needed to support low-income consumers. So I really encourage you to increase that mitigation fee and also increase the non-compliance fee so that it correlates with the level of non-compliance that a manufacturer chooses not to take, or chooses to take. We have to reflect the cost of these NOx emissions and also that non-compliance fee. It's important to remember, if you comply and you produce zero emissions units, you don't have to pay the fee. So that fee should actually reflect non-compliance. So we encourage you to increase that fee by the order of magnitude, the level of non-compliance that they take on. Thank you.
Next speaker is Yu Shen, followed by Chris Chavez.
Good morning, board members. My name is Yu Shen. I am a resident of City of Culver City. I traveled here today to support the passage of Rules 1111 and 1121. I appreciate the myth versus facts document as well as additional outreach the staff has conducted before this meeting. It is clear that the staff have put significant time into producing clear, concise information, as well as the board has also given clear directions in enhancing outreach, addressing additional concerns from the public. I support Rule 1111 and 1121 because they are a significant step towards improving the air quality in the South Coast Basin, which is the mission and responsibility of the Air District Quality Management District. Please adopt the rules in May without further delays.
Next speaker, Chris Chavez, followed by Creation.
Thank you. Chris Chavez, Deputy Policy Director at Coalition for Clean Air, here to express our continued support for Rules 1111 and 1121. Let's be clear. This is an incredibly modest rule, a de minimis fee coupled with milquetoast sales targets. It doesn't add any responsibilities to cities or affect their authority. It doesn't force anybody to buy everything, to the happiness of our self-proclaimed freedom and personal choice advocates in the business community. And yet we're still seeing opposition based on what I would charitably say is a willful misunderstanding of the proposal. And as we've just seen, this board is more than happy to indulge in that willful misunderstanding. We've seen the board express a desire to further weaken the rule. And with the delay to June being a foregone conclusion, the rule is likely to be weakened yet again. So all in the name of meeting some sort of happy compromise. That probably will never happen because the point of this is to delay and defer and defeat any regulations. Let me show you what the customer experience under Rule 1111 and 1121 would be. This is a $2 bill, but let's pretend it's a $50 bill. I pay this and I could still buy a gas-fired water heater. Let's say it's a $100 bill. I pay this and I could buy a gas-fired furnace. That's it. That's what 2 years of this process has led to. So consider that as you vote likely again to delay this rule and to further weaken it. Thank you.
Next commenter, Ayn Creation, followed by Obid Leon.
Thank you. I'm Creation with Climate Action Campaign in Orange County. I'm an Irvine resident. I wanted to underscore the health need for these rules. And according to the American Lung Association, if you go to their website today, if you live in Orange County, the air you breathe puts your health at risk. It is failing. It says the Orange County's ozone pollution is the same now as it was in 1997, nearly 30 years ago. This is unacceptable. And so it's important to remember why these rules are necessary. And as great as heat pumps are, that's not why we are doing this. It's because we need to save the things that we love. We need to do that now because we need to reduce the number of families who are going to be rendered homeless by fires and by flooding events, and the number of elderly people who are going to die alone in their homes due to extreme heat events. And that is in your hands. And so we ask that you please pass these rules now, as soon as possible, that you please increase sales targets to ensure more heat pumps as soon as possible, and that you increase fees on polluting equipment. Thank you.
Next, Obid Leon, followed by George Boutros.
Hello. First of all, I want to thank the AQMD staff members. My name is Obed Leon. I am an environmental justice fellow with the California Youth Leadership Corp, a statewide initiative of the California Labor Workplace Development Agency at Fulton College. CYLC prepares historically marginalized youth to become community organizers and change agents in their local community. I'm working to support immediate approval of these rules. As a resident of Anaheim, also known as one of the most polluted cities in the state of California, I ask immediate change and no more delays on these rules 1111 and 1121. It is important to start taking action to reduce our air quality or air pollution and protect our community from all these pollution. Thank you.
Next commenter, George Boutros, followed by Jessie Lynn Davis.
Good morning, committee members. My name is George Boutros, and I'm here on behalf of Orange County Business Council, or OCBC, the leading voice of business committed to economic growth, workforce stability, and regional competitiveness. OCBC is a proud member of the Cost of Living Council, a coalition committed to a more affordable future for Californians. For months, OCBC has been actively engaged in discussions regarding these proposed amended rules. And this week, our coalition released a scathing economic impact report showing that these regulations would cost customers in the four-county South Coast Air Quality Management District region $7.7 billion. That's $306 million annually and $1,510 per household. Costs will worsen Californians' affordability crisis, particularly for working families and vulnerable communities. Let me be clear, we strongly oppose PARs 1111 and 1121. The so-called compliance options are not true alternatives. Business and consumers will still face higher costs, limited choices, and steep fees that will make compliance unaffordable. OCBC supports environmental progress, but not at the expense of affordability, job creation, and economic recovery. We encourage the South Coast Air Quality Management District to go back to the table, develop cost-effective, practical solutions that balance sustainability with the economic reality. Thank you for your time this morning.
Next commenter, Jesselyn Davis, followed by Jennifer Cardenas.
Good morning, Jesselyn Davis with SoCal Gas. I want to clarify that the new proposed rule does not remove the zero emissions limit mandate. The new concept provides two compliance options. The default is the zero emissions limit, and the alternate is the sales target option that imposes significant fees and requires opt-in by 2026. We also remain concerned the proposed rule is still preempted by EPCA. Neither compliance option is affordable to lower income consumers. Zero emission units are costly, and adding a tax to gas appliances is not a realistic option for those overburdened by energy costs. On slide 17, it states that the ZEM option allows NOx emitting appliances to be installed with no incremental cost impact. It's unclear why there would be no impact given mitigation fees and significant over target mitigation fees. Furthermore, Rule 1121 exceeds the cost effectiveness threshold established by the board. The AQMD states that if a threshold is exceeded, staff would hold a public meeting to discuss rule options above and below the cost effectiveness threshold. This public meeting has not yet occurred, and the rule should not go to the board before this does happen. Thank you for your time today.
Next commenter, Jennifer Cardenas, followed by Yare Lazabal.
Her name's Yareli. So hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Cardenas. I'm a campaign organizer with the Sierra Club, and I actually live in San Bernardino County. I think one thing I would love to say is that AQMD staff have been in places in San Bernardino County informing all of these representatives. I know I've been there, I've seen it. I think one of the things that I would love all of you to also acknowledge is that San Bernardino last year had 180 days of poor air quality. So having these rules would ensure that at least in their home, communities are able to breathe. Kids are able to breathe. I think it's not only the due diligence of AQMD, but also our representatives to make sure that they look up on all the updates. It's been about 16, almost 17 months that this has happened, and we already know it's not new. And I really want to say that this myth versus fact sheet has been so essential to really help us understand what are the public comments opposing this rule that you are receiving, because they are outdated. I hope that when you review and start weighing in what is coming in, ensure that it is based on the new updates of these rules, because it is essential for all the people that are opposing these rules to really understand what is happening. I think if you actually look at what they're opposing, you would see that the new updates actually fix all of those problems that they were debating. So thank you.
Our last in-person commenter is Yare Lazabal. Forgive me on the pronunciation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yareli Olazábal. I am a longtime resident of the Inland Empire and South Coast Basin. I am here in support of strengthening Rules 1111 and 1121. The South Coast Basin already has some of the worst air quality in our nation and some of the highest rates of respiratory diseases. NOx directly contributes to and worsens both of these problems. Rules 1111 and 1121 can directly contribute to the protection and overall well-being of our community if we shape them to. I urge all of you to not only adopt Rules 1111 and 1121 in May, no more delays, but also increase and strengthen compliance targets, and that representatives do their due diligence and read the updates made to these rules and research and reach out to South Coast Air Quality Management District for clarification. It would be disappointing if votes were cast based on outdated misinformation. I also understand that cost is a concern, but that's why programs like the Go Zero program are in place. They directly provide funding to overburdened communities to mitigate those costs and make sure that cost is not a barrier. It's time we stop using economics as an excuse to sacrifice our communities and their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's all in-house here. Chair Delgado, you have 3 at your place?
Yeah, and I'll ask them to come to my spot.
Okay, each has a minute and a half.
And Mr. Chair, again, I have 5. Thank you.
Understand.
Can I go?
Yes, you can.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Vidaurre. I am with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice out of San Bernardino. I am happy to see us getting closer to getting these rules passed, especially as we start to get into the hotter months. And there is nothing that we need more than to finally have these technologies accessible to communities. And this includes lower income communities. And so as we think about these last minute improvements that we can make on this rule, I really want us to center frontline communities that have been most impacted by air pollution and extreme heat and guarantee them that we are incentivizing these heat pumps through fees so that we can finally get more of these heat pumps out there and ultimately lower the costs. Cooling our homes is extremely important, but also taking out indoor air pollution furnaces is equally as important. I think the concerns that keep getting brought up aren't with the intent to find resolution or even with the intent to follow the progress of the rule. It's solely to delay and honestly cause harm ultimately. So our organizations that think about air pollution and extreme heat every day and how to deal with it in a just way, we've been nothing but flexible in trying to find a solution. But if we keep enabling misinformation and these delay tactics, then y'all are being part of the problem. So we've delayed enough and we need action in May. Please support strengthening these rules in the next couple months. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Martinez, and I'm here to support moving forward with these proposed amended rules. I want to address 2 issues, one from our friends at SoCal Gas on the legal issues. Earth Justice is representing 3 organizations who have intervened to help the South Coast Air Quality Management District defend the current lawsuit under EPCA over 1146.2. We think their arguments, especially about this version of the rule, are overblown and wrong. And I just want to point to the recent opinion in the Southern District of New York, where efforts to claim an effort there was preempted, was overturned by a federal district court judge. We are very confident that this rule is not preempted by EPCA. And then second, I want to just reiterate that for folks saying they want emission reductions, but don't like this rule, the alternative here is ratcheting down the NOx standard for this equipment, which the manufacturers do not want. And that would add increased costs, an onerous process to this system. And so it makes no sense. Let's get this rule done. The staff, the board, listen to the commenters who claim the old system was bad. The current system's flexible. There are a few very common sense changes that can fix it, increasing the fees to provide more money for Go Zero and increasing compliance targets, amongst some others. We can get this done. Let's get this done soon. And then we can move on to implementation and get more heat pumps into communities throughout the region.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair McCallum, board, committee, staff. Pete Marsh, mostly retired military officer, regional business executive, and small business owner. I've made payroll. I've operated businesses profitably. The claim here that this transition is unaffordable misses the global macroeconomics that I've spoken about before, in which the World Bank studies and finds that fossil fuel combustion imposes around a $7 trillion indirect subsidy on the global economy. That's a 7% tax of our just over $100 trillion global GDP. So all of the business folks that are opposing this appear to be looking primarily at the direct costs, not at indirects, which we, as business people, we have to manage both. We need to be net zero emissions by 2050. The projections are that to get there, that's 90% reduction in fossil fuel combustion in 25 years and 10% carbon dioxide removal. Economics 101 tells us that as supply decreases, price will increase of natural gas and other fossil fuels. So it's very clear that as gas is phasing out within 25 years, barely more than the life of the machines expected to be sold today, if we don't start aggressively phasing out the end-use machines today, We will be willfully allowing the.
Thank you so much for your comments. That's all for Senator Delgado's place. Very good. We'll go to Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank
have
you.
five-
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Andrew Reich. I'm here just as an individual. I've got an Earth Justice shirt on, but I'm just a fan, not really affiliated. I'm here to urge the board to swiftly pass these rules. I've been following the rules coming, mostly out to Diamond Bar and seeing the progress and seeing how the critics' concerns have been addressed. I do think that it'd be great to increase the incentives for heat pumps and to accelerate the timeline. But I see how the staff has really addressed the critics' concerns. And I'm just wondering how much we owe to people who are willfully mischaracterizing something as a mandate that is clearly not a mandate. How many changes are really necessary to these rules when no matter what changes are made, it seems like the opposition is just going to call it a mandate, as they like to do with many common sense rules, just like they would call the electric vehicle incentives a mandate. This clearly isn't a mandate. It's a sensible rule. We need to clean our air. It's something that is important to every resident. So I would just urge the board to listen to your incredible staff who always impressed me so much, and to not delay any further, and hopefully to strengthen these rules, but certainly to pass them without any further delay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good morning, board members and staff and community who's commenting and calling in today. My name is Kimberly Orbe. I work with the Sierra Club, and I'm here to speak on behalf of our over 33,000 members in the region in the South Coast. I urge you to make the much needed strengthening of these standards to more effectively protect public health as they were initially intended to. These rules are essential for pollution from fossil fuel furnaces and water heaters, or to combat that. Despite AQMD staff addressing fossil fuel industry demands, opponents of the rule continue to be unappeased because their business model depends on polluting appliances. These rules, as you're hearing, have overwhelming support from those who have participating in the rulemaking process for months. The current mitigation fees do not reflect true health costs. Non-compliant fees must reflect the true cost of continued pollution on public health. Each additional dollar collected through appropriate mitigation fees translates to expanded incentives that make clean technologies financially accessible for low-income households, just like one that you might have heard about called Go Zero, which is a big win, especially as it puts money to support the transition for those who need it. Please amend the policies as quickly as possible, as community impacted today has showed up that you represent is asking you to, and in order to ensure that they're able to be passed in May. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Good morning. My name is Michael Rockmus. I'm a volunteer with LA Climate Reality. I'm in strong support of zero emission standards for residential space and water heating. Sales of heat pump space and water heating has been rising rapidly because people are recognizing that it is a superior technology. And in many cases, it is the most affordable option for people today. In fact, the main challenge I hear from people who want to install a heat pump is finding a contractor who won't try to argue them out of it. The flexibility in the rule means that homeowners can buy the zero emission option if it is the more attractive option, and the NOx emitting gas option if that is the more attractive option. In theory, all you're asking manufacturers to do is a little work to make zero emission options more attractive. The main concern I have is that by setting the 2027 target at where the market is today, and by keeping the fee for sales over the target so low, you aren't actually incentivizing manufacturers to do anything. I heard the comment that some manufacturers think the rule puts too much work on them. We really need manufacturers on board, working with retailers and installers to make buying a heat pump as easy as buying a NOx emitting gas appliance. Of course, they prefer not to, but this is the cost of offering consumer choice. Please strengthen the rules so that it sends the market signal needed to ramp up heat pump sales more quickly. Our air and health depends on it. And please stay on track for the May vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Hello, my name is Gayatri and I live in Koreatown, Los Angeles. I'm an intern with the Sierra Club Angeles chapter and a climate mental health worker. The process of rules 1111 and 1121 has already taken a 16-month public process along with 3 years of the development of a very thorough air quality management plan. Its passing must not be delayed further than May 2nd. I personally suffer from asthma, which has increased since moving to this region a few years ago. On top of the regular poor air quality here, I felt valid anxieties about the air and my health, not only from the recent wildfires, but the future of living here. That's why I sincerely request that we pass these rules as soon as possible. We cannot keep delaying the health of our communities and the livability of current and future generations based on these arguments against our health, based on the market values and things. Thank you for hearing our demands.
Thank you so much. Next.
Those are all the members of the public who will be providing public testimony, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. I cut off the queue at 19 commenters. I hope the staff caught that. And we'll go to in line here and ask Vice Chair to read.
I would help you out, Chair. The first speaker is Clint Olivier. Clint, go ahead, please. You got a minute and a half. Clint, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. My name is Clint Olivier. I'm the CEO of Central Valley Business Federation, or BizFed. We're a grassroots alliance of over 75 businesses and organizations representing 30,000 diverse employers and over 400,000 employees across the Central Valley, but many of those have locations in your region as well. I'm here today to voice our strong opposition and concern about proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121, as well as the precedent they could make for other regions like ours. These proposed rules will impose significant costs on businesses, homeowners, and renters and deepen their financial burdens, particularly for those already in the most vulnerable economic positions for minimal energy savings. The vast majority of residents have no idea of the upcoming requirements and the significant costs involved for everyday people. What they are aware of, though, is the daily struggle to make ends meet. I appreciate your business owners, homeowners, renters. None of us can afford this. I appreciate your time and consideration and respectfully request that you oppose rules 1111 and 1121 and move to postpone any further action on these rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Aaron Park. Aaron, go ahead, please. Aaron, you're muted. Aaron, you're still muted.
I'm sorry. Okay. Good morning. My name is Erin Pack with Care Clinic, a nonprofit federally qualified health center serving 22,000 patients from 128 zip codes. Every day we work with patients who are struggling with food insecurity, unemployment, and housing shortages, which collectively impact their mental and physical health, as well as their safety. They're finding it difficult to provide for their families and make ends meet. It is unreasonable to expect that everyone either directly or indirectly can afford zero NOx appliances, water heaters, or furnaces without facing financial hardship. Replacing appliances and heaters may also require an upgrade to both electric panel and wiring, another cost to the consumers. Renters will have these costs passed along to them without any option to say no. The amended rules eliminates customer choice and jeopardizes energy access, safety, and reliability for us. We believe our patients and residents at large should have the right to choose safe, reliable, and affordable energy and appliances they use in their homes and businesses. For these reasons, we respectfully oppose the proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dan Thompson with Building Doctors. Dan, go ahead, please. Dan, you're muted.
There you go. Yeah, hi, my name is Dan Thompson. I'm a contractor here in Los Angeles, California. We do this whole house approach by looking at homes as integrated systems. I'm here in voicing support of the 1111 and 1121 with no further delays. And also asking for the following additions about the boosting sales targets and then increasing the fees to help subsidize the Go Zero program. I'm just telling you from a boots on the ground approach here that when we present homeowners with the difference between a gas furnace and a heat pump, almost 99% of our customers always go with the heat pump because it is actually less expensive to install it than a gas furnace because you're not running gas lines, you're not venting them out because there is no combustion, which is what helps with the indoor air quality. So it's all of these combined that these are just false things by the gas company that's desperately trying to hold on to a dying industry. People don't have dinosaurs they can bury and a million years to wait to make more natural gas. It's going to be an all-electric future where we're going to be. Every house is going to have a electric vehicle in 10, 15 years and solar panels up on the rooftop. Let's help push this along as it should be. Please pass this with no further delays. Thanks for your time.
Dan, can you give our staff your name and information? I want to go watch you install one of those heat pumps.
Yeah, you're welcome to come out. I can show you. We are total nerds here at Building Doctors. Absolutely, yeah. Come out. We use it.
Are you located in our district, Dan, in the South Coast District?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we just did one down Huntington Beach this last week.
Okay, so it's called Building Doctors, right?
Yeah, Building Doctors, yeah.
Okay, I want to set up a visitation with any board members who want to go. Thank you. We'll move on.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Yeah, appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you, Chair, for that. Next is Teresa Chang. Teresa?
Hi, good morning to the board and staff. My name is Teresa Chang. I'm the California Director for Industrious Labs, and I'm also calling to support passing rules 1111 and 1121 with no further delays. Like many others, I'm also requesting amendments to the rules that will boost targets to ensure we have more heat pumps sooner and also to increase fees on polluting equipment. The currently proposed fees are not enough to reflect the true health costs of pollution, and increasing fees means that more low-income households in the region can access clean technologies. I'd like to acknowledge the staff who's been working on these rules for 3 years and the community who's participated for over a year and a half. Gas equipments from buildings in the region generate more NOx than regional oil and gas production, refineries, cement manufacturing, and power generation combined. Urgency demands that these rules be passed as scheduled in May. I'd also like to note that passing these rules is consistent with the national trend. Heat pumps are becoming the main heating technology nationally, outselling gas furnaces by 37% just last year. And the region's 2 largest cities, LA and Long Beach, have both passed resolutions supporting the rules. We're asking you to stand with communities, not the gas companies, and amend these rules as quickly as possible in order to ensure they're able to be passed on May 2nd. Thank you so much for your time.
Next is Michael Corbett. Michael, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Mike Corbett with Bradford White Corporation. We are a leading manufacturer of water heater products, including ultra-low NOx gas-fired water heaters and electric heat pump water heaters. We are providing public comment today regarding the proposed mitigation fee schedule contained in PAR 1121. While we understand that the mitigation fee option was proposed as an alternative compliance pathway per the district's rule development guidelines, we believe there are other ways to accomplish the district's goals. A much more predictable and effective way to change consumer behavior would be to charge a fee at the point of purchase. Understanding that the district board is not in favor of a measure that would be perceived as a tax levied on their constituents, we would like to work with the district staff to develop a flat fee per ultra-low NOx gas water heater sold. The flat fee we would propose is some incremental value over the currently proposed base fee of $50 that balances consumer choice by not making ultra-low NOx gas product unaffordable, but high enough to encourage consumers to consider zero NOx alternatives. This fee could escalate over time in line with the California Consumer Price Index. Lastly, we encourage the district not to rush to approve this rule before manufacturers in the district have an opportunity to discuss a more workable solution to the mitigation fee alternative. The development of PAR 1121 before the change in February took over a year with 7 working groups, 2 stationary source committee meetings, and a public consultation. With a change this dramatic, we respectfully request that more time be allowed to iron out the details. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Next is Victor Reyes. Go ahead, Victor.
Hi, good morning. My name is Victor Reyes, and I'm speaking on behalf of VICA, the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, and we represent a broad range of businesses across the San Fernando Valley and the LA region. Now, we appreciate the goals behind Rule 1111 and 1121, but we have serious concerns about how they're being proposed. The rules would effectively ban certain gas appliances that are protected under federal law, and that raises real legal concerns, especially considering similar concerns that have already been challenged in court, particularly with another ruling, 1146.2. Manufacturers are left with two options: either meet zero NOx limits within a few years or opt into an alternative program that phases in products but adds a fee to every gas appliance sold. Those fees range from $50 to $900 per unit, and they'll end up being passed on to the consumer. That creates a real affordability issue, and that's something that the region is already having to grapple with. Families, small businesses, and developers are all going to feel the impact. And frankly, the rules don't seem to be cost effective as what you guys are proposing. PAR 1121 comes with high costs and limited benefits, while PAR 1111 relies on assumption about equipment that isn't even covered in the ruling. So we're asking AQMD to continue their outreach with stakeholders and take the time to fully understand the economic impact.
Thank you. Next is, it says Sydney's iPad. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. I am calling because I'm urging the AQMP to pass this rule with no further delays. I strongly believe that even though it may seem expensive upfront for consumers and manufacturers to promote and make and sell and get these emissions-free appliances, I strongly believe it'll cost more in the long run if we ignore climate change and the climate crisis. What we saw in LA, the wildfires, that cost over $250 billion in damages. It's going to cost more for people that have to be homeless, physically, mentally, and financially. It's going to cost people. It's going to cost more to have to rebuild and repair. It's going to cost more for children and other people to get asthma attacks and have to miss school. And it's gonna cost lives. Last year was, I believe, the hottest record year worldwide. We're just going to keep breaking records every year. So I think it's very important to pass these essential emissions reduction rules. And also we can help people along the way that are, financially struggling or can't afford these appliances.
Thank you, Sydney. Next is Mariela Roacho. Mariela, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mariela Roacho from the American Lung Association. I am testifying in support of Rule 1111 and 1121. I ask that you pass these rules while also urging you to strengthen these rule standards to more effectively protect public health. Southern California has the worst air in the nation for ozone, according to our State of the Air report. Air pollution affects the health of everyone and causes asthma attacks and respiratory and heart diseases. We support the South Coast implementation of zero emission rules for appliances and urge you to amend the current rule by ensuring you transition technologies to 100% zero emission on an earlier timeline. We support the original proposal, which require 100% zero emission appliances and ensuring the transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dylan Plummer with the Sierra Club. Dylan, go ahead, please.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Dylan Plummer. I work as a campaign advisor for the Sierra Club's National Building Decarbonization Campaign. I'm here to testify on behalf of the Sierra Club and our tens of thousands of members and supporters that live and work in the South Coast region, and to voice our support for Rules 1111 and 1121. Sierra Club believes that these rules must be passed on schedule at the meeting on May 2nd without further delay. That said, recent changes to the rules have significantly weakened the regional emissions reductions that they will generate. In light of this, I urge you to strengthen these standards to maximize air quality, climate resilience, and efficiency benefits for more than 17 million Southern California residents. Please strengthen these rules by 1, accelerating the implementation timelines, and 2, increasing fees to reflect the real costs of the air pollution that continued use of polluting appliances will cause. There's a groundswell of support for these rules, with thousands of South Coast residents submitting comments and providing testimony in support, and the 2 largest cities in the region, Los Angeles and Long Beach, passing resolutions in support. Please listen to the community and work with us to ensure that these rules pass without delay. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dylan. Next is Harvey Etter. Harvey, go ahead, please.
Hello, am I being heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I'm speaking for myself and Public Solar Power Coalition of like-minded folks. I want to incorporate by reference everything we said on the record since we've been going to the district 40 years ago, and in subgroup meetings like this, and in conversations that have been documented. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff. Okay, this argument that this is a mandate. All right. Well, first of all, the zero emissions has been like a cover up of what we put in the Solar New Deal 16 plan. Solar. We've been asked by the American Solar Energy Society to write a paper on this for their next meeting out of Boulder. Anyway, there's big problems here. They said this thing about a mandate. Okay, we've got a mandate, fossil fuels, and we got all the external costs that are not internalized or evaluated. Cost benefit is BS. There's a Lancet now. So a Lancet magazine from February of 17 said there's 1 to 1.5 million premature deaths in the U.S. each year. The state of California says only 7,000. We're 12% of the population of 150 to 200,000 deaths out of 300,000 deaths. That's $10 to $12 million of deaths. That is equal nationally to the gross national product, and that's the tip of the iceberg. I want to incorporate also comments we made to Washington Journal in the last 3 months, and it's 4 or 5 years ago about the fires. They're not going away; they're getting worse. And we had an 8 earthquake in 57, and it's 170 years. And if that happens when we have these fires again, it's up. We got to deal with it. We got to convert equitably to solar.
I've got a question for staff. This list keeps changing, keeps getting bigger. I know where I cut it off at some point, and I don't understand where the cutoff is. Can someone tell me that?
So the cutoff was at Whitney. Whitney, however, just disconnected.
Right.
We're looking, so the cutoff is now she say?
She say?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Mark, go ahead, please. Mark Coda or Costa.
Thank you. This is Mark Costa with the Energy Coalition, resident of Los Angeles. I've been working with local governments for over a decade, participate in the International Energy Agency groups, United Nations groups, as well as the Department of Energy with their Gridwise Architecture Council, scaffolding out the future of our power systems. And I'm calling in to voice support in the urgency of passing these rules. Do want to reiterate that the district does have the authority to regulate NOx emissions, and there's precedent in Northern California for this. Do want to remind those that there has been a commitment by manufacturers for 6 million heat pumps in 2022 that was just updated as of last week in the commitment. And the cost of living council study that was stated and realtor concerns, they're very real. And I have reviewed that and found mathematical errors in the cost estimates that don't align with this, and welcome the opportunity to engage them through the Go Zero program. The grid can handle this. There's a robust CPUC process on it. And lastly, I just want to say that we at the Energy Coalition have been in disadvantaged communities, retrofitting homes, and we are taking people out of poverty. We're taking people out of poverty with these exact types of retrofits. And there's a tremendous economic upside to homes and businesses by taking advantage of these rebates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next is Sterling Scott. Sterling, go ahead, please.
There you go. Hi, I'm Sterling Scott. I'm with Boys Republic. We're a private nonprofit residential treatment facility in San Bernardino and Los Angeles County. We deal with adolescent troubled youth and their families. I've been with this organization 34 years, and I would guess that about 80 to 90% of our families are at poverty level or below. I just would really strongly recommend that we take into consideration the cost effectiveness of this. I think I understand the long-term effects. I would think that some of our families that are struggling month to month to make their rent and put food on their dinner tables deserve some say in this, because I think if it is being passed on to the consumers, it could not only affect our families, but as a nonprofit, it could have a negative impact on us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sterling. Next is Jed Holtzman. Jed, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Chair McCallan and committee members. My name is Jed Holtzman from RMI. The first working group meeting on these rules was back in September 2023, and this rule has gone through more public process and deliberation than any rule that folks are aware of for at least a decade. California signed a commitment with 8 other states and Washington, D.C. to exceed 65% heat pump sales by 2030. It is important for the South Coast rule targets to meet or exceed these commitments. The current proposal will not require anything above the market status quo in the first compliance period, and in 2030 will be way behind the commitment that the state has already made with its peer states around the country. This is a really weak outcome after years of pursuing this policy, starting in the 2022 AQMP development and beyond. These targets need to be strengthened. Move straight to the 50-50 target, and then your second compliance period will actually be meeting or exceeding the state's commitments. Staff introduced multiple rounds of exemptions and alternative compliance options in the former version of the rule, and there was no change to opposition. Staff changed the entire rule concept, and there was no change to opposition. Now you are finally hearing the ultimate ask from folks today. Postpone any further action on these rules. Stop your work. Do not regulate. I think you need to accept that opposition is not operating in good faith on the specific concerns they have expressed throughout this process, and that staff has bent over backwards to address. The reality is.
Thank you, Jed. Next is Tomas Castro. Tomas, go ahead, please.
Hello, committee members. My name is Tomas Castro. I'm an organizer with Climate Action Campaign and resident of Irvine. I'm here to demand that this committee and the rest of the board strengthen and pass Rules 1111 and 1121 without further delay. Throughout this process, the gas industry has made it perfectly clear that they are unwilling to compromise with board members and activists who simply want to protect the public health of their own communities. Time and again, we have delayed voting on these rules, watered them down due to industry demands, only for them to continue whining about the new version. The time has come to put our communities first. Increase the mitigation fee and please pass the rules in May. I ask this committee, do you wish to waste more time while people die needlessly, or act now to clean up our air? Thank you.
Thank you, Tomas. Next is Paul Interante. Paul, go ahead, please.
Hello, could you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Paul Interante. Thank you for allowing me to call in. Unfortunately, this meeting's in the middle of the day, so you have to stay on hold while you're at work all day long. So I think that's not the best way to get the public feedback. Those that are working and are paying their bills, most of them would be against this because this is all higher costs. But that's secondary. The first thing is I'm trying to call with common sense. We talked about common sense earlier. We talked about myth versus fact. Well, here's the fact. The fact is we don't have enough electricity. The fact is that the word electricity was only brought up once before I just brought it up. And so same with the mandate for the EV vehicles. We're supposed to get these EV vehicles and there's not enough electricity. And even when there is electricity, it's cut off whenever there's a wind problem. So I don't know why nobody even acknowledges this problem. this is not, we're not in a position right now to take everything to electric. So please take that into consideration and please have some common sense in this. And as a resident and homeowner, also the costs are higher whether you buy an electric one or whether you buy a traditional one because there's fees. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Next is Tony Serna.
Hello, thank you very much, members of the South Coast Air Quality Management Board and agency staff. My name is Tony Serna, and I work on climate and air quality issues with Evergreen Action. Thank you for all your work protecting and improving the air quality in the South Coast region. I want to voice my support for Rules 1111 and 1121. I appreciate your continued work on these rules that are critical to addressing the air quality issues in the South Coast District. As it is, people experience serious health issues and die from the pollution emitted from furnaces and water heaters in this district. Poor air quality from burning gas has high costs, both high healthcare costs and physical impacts. These are already impacting families in the district every day, and a true measure of affordability must consider these impacts. While I would prefer the Air District consider a faster transition to zero NOx equipment and higher mitigation fees, I support the district making no further delays in passage of this policy. As written, the rules are significantly weakened from the district's original proposal. That's why I support boosting the sales target to move faster to zero NOx appliances and higher mitigation fees to make more money available for the Go Zero program. As it is, I'm concerned that the non-compliance fees are not high enough to motivate manufacturers to take the action necessary to increase the sales of zero NOx appliances. I encourage you to pass these rules as scheduled in May without any further delay, but please amend and strengthen these policies as quickly as possible to ensure that they can be passed on May 2nd. Thank you again for supporting better air quality and better health in the district. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Next speaker is Tom Hazelleaf. Tom, go ahead, please. Tom, you're muted. Tom, you're still muted.
I'm Tom Hazleaf. I live in Seal Beach. With our leaders in Washington abandoning their mandate to protect our air and water, it's imperative that PAR 1111 and 1112 be implemented as soon as possible. Federal rebates subsidize heat pumps and wiring and panel upgrades. A few years ago, when I had a heat pump water heater installed with the state, federal, local, and utility rebates, the heat pump was cheaper than the gas unit. Disregarding climate change, an existential threat on its own, fossil fuel pollution is implicated in 1 in 10 US deaths and is responsible for $2,500 in direct and indirect medical expenses every year for every American. That's $10,000 a year for a family of 4. Fossil fuel producers have known the dangers of their products since the 1960s, and James Hansen told all of us about it in his Senate testimony in 1988. I have no sympathy for utilities and their investors that have been foisting their toxic products on us for years. Please, for our health and prosperity, expedite passage of these regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Next is Omar Torres. Omar, go ahead, please.
Hello and good morning. My name is Omar Torres, and I serve as the Senior Director of Civic Engagement for the YMCA of Metropolitan Los Angeles. I work closely with families every day, families for doing their best to raise their kids and stay healthy and make ends meet. We all support the goal of clean air and a healthier environment, but to truly be effective, the policies we put forth must also be grounded in equity, affordability, and what's realistic for working families. As currently proposed, we're concerned that the rules around 1111 and 1121 could unintentionally create additional burdens for those least equipped to absorb them. These changes limit choices for families, especially those who may not be able to afford new electric systems or may live in older buildings where switching isn't simple or even possible without major renovations. Some of the cost estimates used to justify the rules don't reflect reality for most families. Not every household is replacing an entire AC system when buying a new furnace. Real-world decisions don't always line up with ideal case scenarios. We believe in environmental progress, but we also believe in solutions that bring everyone along, not just those with the means to adopt new technology right away. I respectfully urge the South Coast AQMD to slow down, engage more deeply with impacted communities, and prioritize flexible, cost-effective approaches that meet both our clean air goals and economic needs of the people we serve. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Omar. Next speaker is Crystal Miles.
Good morning, or I guess afternoon now. It's been a while. Good morning. I am Crystal Miles, Councilwoman for the City of Villa Park, and I do appreciate the goals of decreasing the NOx emissions, but I feel the need to express or point out three items that I feel are kind of getting, I guess, glossed over in my opinion. And one of them is concerning the mitigation fee. I feel, as do my constituents, that it is 100% operating as a mandate. The mitigation fee might be framed as a choice, but in practice, the options it presents can feel very coercive. And by design, the setup of this mitigation fee, it actually drives compliance over time, which I know is the goal. But the financial and logistical burdens make it feel less like an optional pathway and more like a required course of action for many. The second thing I would like to point out is the economic imbalance that this is going to actually exacerbate. So my vulnerable groups, my older adults, my disabled low-income households, they have fewer resources to adapt to these changes, and as such, they face a disproportionate impact, which will further reduce the sense of having an equitable choice. And finally, as the chair indicated, there has not been enough public education. No one has attended my council meetings, and so therefore I request a second look at this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Next speaker is Ann Pernick. Ann, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Ann Pernick. I'm with Safe Cities at Stand at Earth. Chair, board members, and staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I wanted to note quickly that I heard from John McKenna that he signed up to speak before the cutoff, but then was disconnected. I'm hoping you can let him speak as well. Safe Cities at Stand at Earth strongly supports Rules 1111 and 1121 and appreciates all of staff's work. I especially appreciate today how staff noted that many opposition comments have been based on earlier versions of the rules, not on the new approach. On the new approach, we urge strengthening the penalties, moving up all the percentage targets, making 50-50 the first target, and passage in May without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Christy.
Hi, my name is Christy Taranti. I'm a resident calling from Riverside, California. I'm not a lobbyist, nor am I getting paid to spend my time on this agenda. I'm just a concerned middle-class resident who has always felt a duty to be a good steward with the land we've been blessed with. I'm a native Californian who's been frustrated with big government taking over our state and chasing so many of my family and friends out of this state. So I am concerned, very concerned about many things. I heard the lady say at the beginning of her presentation that just this morning they sent out a one-page flyer. What was it, 16,000? Who did they go to? Is this info on the natural gas and electric bills for consumers so that they can actually get this information? So more people can know about what's going on. The majority of consumers don't know what's going on. They're not, the people pressuring you are not only forcing their views on you, but all of our California neighbors. They're forcing us to spend money that we don't want to spend while taking away our freedom of choice. This whole thing sounds like our state of California is trying to put the SoCal Gas Company out of business in favor of electric companies who have way too much power right now. They turn off their services whenever we have a windy day, not to mention the cost to have electric services. It keeps going up and up. Plus, right now, people who have gas appliances can still survive longer without electricity than those who are on all electric. They can still.
Thank you, Christy. Next is Al Sattler. Go ahead, Al.
Good morning. Good morning, board. Good morning to the committee. I strongly urge you to stay the course and move the process along to have the board vote and approve proposed rules 1111 and 1121. I think that, number one, the concern about shortage of electricity is not a valid one. Solar and battery backup continues to increase. There is essentially just zero or next to zero chance of brownouts from shortage of electricity. The other issue of safety shutoffs is perhaps a valid one, but the with continued with undergrounding and hardening of electrical lines, that issue hopefully will be greatly reduced. Although we don't want another fire caused by electric utilities. So anyway, please stay the course and support zero NOx.
Thank you all. Our last speaker, if I'm correct, Wayne? That last one, okay, is Shishay Gahandas Dareda. Shishay, please pronounce that correctly for me.
Yeah, no worries. I have a very tough last name, and I misspelled my first name. So good morning. Well, actually, we're officially in good afternoon, AQMD committee members. I'm Shida. I put an S instead of a D. Ganda Harizadeh. I was born and raised in LA, and I currently am a renter in beautiful downtown LA. I'm calling in to support the passing of Rules 1111 and 1121 with no more delay, as well as strengthening the current rules. I just want to say I'm a renter right now. I've been a renter ever since I became an adult. And so I don't get a lot of choices in my appliances. It's whatever is cheaper for my landlords. When I was learning about, the clean air and zero NOx, these appliances are more appealing to me, especially right now. I live in a unit with no range hood and a gas stove. And so I would just like it to be able to make these decisions as a renter and have it be easier for my landlords and cheaper for my landlords to choose zero NOx because they're obviously not living in the space I am, and that would just be really convenient. And lastly, I also just wanted to say this is a near and dear topic to my heart. Yesterday was Persian New Year, and me and my family are getting together today to be at the house of my matriarch who passed away from lung fibrosis last year. And so I'd love clean air for her and for other people suffering with lung issues now in LA. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Thank you for your comments. We're sorry for your loss. That completes our public comment period. Chair Delgado, I would, we're experiencing significant opposition from cities, and I know Supervisor Hagman has offered to since we have a General Assembly coming up in May, to give us an opportunity to reach, all 192 cities in the Southern California region with this. And also from the standpoint that we have a couple of new members who really aren't up to speed on this. And some of us will be attending the SCAG meeting, and I know Supervisor Hagman is the president and obviously has to be there. And I think it's important that we consider this rule with all of us present. So I would suggest that we go ahead and move the hearing to June. I would ask your thoughts and support on that.
I know that the supervisor has her hand raised, so I'll let her all speak before I give my thoughts, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Supervisor Mitchell.
Larry.
You're still muted.
You're muted. Okay. Thank you, Chair Delgado. I would ask that you go ahead and answer a question. I have a series of comments I wanted to make. So why don't you go ahead and answer the chair's question, but I appreciate you acknowledging my hand up.
Yeah, so I appreciate Supervisor Hagman giving us that opportunity to kind of inform cities. Staff, what do you think about doing that sort of presentation? Do you think that would be helpful? I know you've been going out to cities individually, so I am receptive to it, but only if it helps to clear kind of some of the misinformation that's out there.
I think having all of those parties at one site really does assist us in getting the message out. It is difficult when we go to one COG meeting, one council meeting at a time. So from a perspective of getting the information out, that's fine. The challenge, or one of the challenges that we face, is I know we're trying to coordinate with SCAG on the Energy and Environment Committee. And the SCAG General Assembly will also be going on while we have a board meeting. So we may not be able to send a senior staff person, but we'll send the best person that we can to make sure that we make the right presentation.
And Mr. Chair, if I may follow up on that.
Sure.
We'll try, it's a 2-day conference. We'll try to be very flexible and we'll prioritize this to get in front of the majority of our council members from the 192 cities. And I would just say, look at our testimony today. It is from one extreme to the other. Something it's mandated, some is not. There's just still a lot of confusion on this. So the more exposure, the better. Just for success going forward, and the other rules we have to do. We have made significant changes. Yes, this process started a long time ago. But just this last month, there's changes in the language of this. So I think to get it out there is very important to have many people know about it as possible.
Chair, is your suggestion that we make a motion to move the hearing, or because we would have to renotice that, right? Or
That's correct.
okay, I'm receptive to presenting at SCAG and then it'd be pushed to June to vote for it.
Okay, do we need a consensus or a motion or a vote?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would recommend a motion, but also a reminder that that would need to be approved by the full board at the April meeting because they set the meeting for April.
Understand.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to move the hearing till May, the first meeting in May to the governing board.
I'll second.
First meeting in
June.
June 2025, sorry.
I'll second that.
All right. Call for the vote. I'm sorry, you got a mic's not on.
Okay. Supervisor Mitchell,
No.
Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Board Member Padilla Campos. No. Chair McCallum,
Yes.
motion passes.
Did you call Vice Chair?
Councilmember Cacciari.
Yes.
I don't think I got to vote, but aye.
Okay, Senator Delgado,
Yes.
motion passes.
Sorry, can I comment? At the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments meeting, Energy and Environment Natural Resources Commission meeting, we discussed this in length. The committee voted to support, I believe, to support this measures as they're amended, but they had some concerns and they wanted it continued. So I'm bringing forth my cities which wanted it continued. Thank you.
I think it's important, all of those of us on this board that are appointed by cities to sit on this board, we're very concerned that this misinformation that's out there, we need to put out some facts so that they can get on board and not oppose this as we go forward. Supervisor Mitchell, you had a whole list of things you wanted to talk about.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have to start by saying that as I'm proud to serve as vice chair of this committee. And I want to thank the staff for their really diligent hard work. They've done what we've asked them to do. And, some of today's conversations I find really quite intriguing. I served in the state legislature with Supervisor Hagman and Senator Delgado, where we heard thousands of bills a year, where we came nowhere near 100 stakeholder meetings. A bill might be heard in the Assembly twice, a Senate twice, and it became law. And so this notion that we have to take responsibility for the public understanding what a regulatory agency has a responsibility to do for public health is curious to me. You'd introduce a bill, it's kept the same bill number, and that bill could change drastically. And it was the public and stakeholders and the advocates' responsibility to keep current on the content. So I'm very disappointed that we are once again punting this public health issue down the road. I know of no other governing body that expects a regulatory entity to attend all of our elected bodies to explain it. There are paid stakeholder lobbyists. The manufacturers at the state legislature are one of the most powerful lobby in the state. So I'm just concerned that we are going to continue to punt if there is but one or two city councils or individuals who haven't kept current. I want to thank staff for the fact sheet. I took responsibility and had my staff put a side-by-side together so I could track the changes from our initial proposal to what's being considered today. So I just want to state my deep concern at a trend this board appears to be succumbing to, where when the going gets tough, we delay a decision. The earlier board meeting today, it was suggested that we delay because we're dark in July. I think we have a responsibility to do the actions that the people who live in our service area require of us. The fact that the current proposal being considered will cut our NOx reductions in half, I'm not sure what more the manufacturers want from us. We are a regulatory body who is attempting to clean our air and get in compliance where we are so deeply out of compliance. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District, which has far less of an ozone compliance problem than we do, is requiring 100% for water heaters by 2027 and 100% for furnaces by 2029. And yet we are coming nowhere near those numbers. The state of California has signed on to a 9-state pact that this rule, as it's currently written, won't even allow us to be in compliance with what the commitment the state of California has made, along with 8 other states. So I guess, Mr. Chair, you can tell by my tone that I'm growing impatient. I appreciate that we talk about the general public doesn't know, but our own public comment has increased tenfold. 2,000 people participated versus 200 initially. So I'm not sure with the strain on staff and resources, what more we could possibly think staff could do. With 100 stakeholder meetings conducted, including every manufacturer that this rule will apply to. Ultimately, we are not going to be able to appease every manufacturer. And we as a body are going to have to decide who we are and what we're about and what our role is. If we are committed to reducing NOx reductions, then we have to reduce NOx reductions. If we're going to work collaboratively with the other regulatory agencies in this state, if we are going to comply with the progressive actions the state of California has taken, then we need to take action quickly. So I certainly hope that we won't find cause for lack of quorum or whatever to postpone a decision past June. I will be deeply disappointed if we do. I do have questions and comments with regard to the increased mitigation fees, the increased percentages, the increased non-compliance fees, but I'll hold them since I'll have another opportunity to discuss this at a future meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Mitchell. I understand. I would just point out that the state legislature many times does a gut and amend right at the last minute and doesn't give anybody a chance to look at it on their bills.
And actually, that's no longer allowed, sir. It's something called the 72-hour rule, but your point is taken.
Okay, thank you.
But
And as far as I'm concerned, Supervisor, this will be heard in June, period.
I thought we're taking a final vote in the full council before
Pardon?
that happens. I thought we need to take a full vote in council
Oh, yeah.
before that's official,
Oh, yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah, at the
Okay.
board meeting.
Right, okay.
At the board
I
meeting.
wish we would have listened to Supervisor Mitchell before we took our vote, but I really appreciated her comments and did a lot what she said. I'm deeply concerned and confused by us punting this further down. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yes, all right.
Go ahead.
Several, I'll follow up on the supervisors because I'm concerned about delay too, but I've been pushed by the cities I represent. But Wayne, whether we do it May or June, isn't the implementation plan pretty much the same structure? So we can still implement on the same 2027, is that correct?
That's correct.
So good. So even though we may have to delay a month, staff is assuring us we can still implement this as the current version says.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's good to know. Just following, Wayne, I'm starting to wrap my hands around this, getting better feel, maybe minor tweaks, feeling good, even I've heard both arguments from everybody. On the manufacturers, you've met with them. Are there any in our basin manufacturer, any in the state, or most out of state, and are there big players, small? Just an idea as I'm considering this bill, or this measure.
Yeah, mostly they're not located here.
Okay. On the mitigation fees, I know Supervisor has some comments too. I like the numbers, but maybe a little tweak. I'm thinking as the chair said on that $500, I would agree to modify those numbers a little bit. Trying to find, can you bring the slide up on the fee, on the mitigation fees?
And are you referring to the 500 feet for both the heat
Yep.
pump and the water heater?
And 100 and the 150, that's the one. So the 500 mitigation fee, I understand it because of price difference. I'd agree with a smaller mitigation fee for the water heaters. And probably even maybe knock the mitigation fee down a little bit. Wayne, I'm not sure. You said that was a concern of the manufacturers. Well, you mentioned 500 was what they say specifically.
What I heard was that the 500 fee would exceed the profit margin on the individual units, and therefore they would most likely just impose the mitigation fee as an immediate pass-through, as opposed to looking at the end of the year. But what I think happened is that there was a misunderstanding on what the mitigation fee applies to. And it's only that portion which didn't meet the standard, the guideline. So for instance, and I'm going to ask Mike to correct me if I'm wrong, if the goal was 100 and they sold 102, only 2 units then would be subject to that mitigation fee.
Okay.
Not all of those units.
Okay, just looking at that fee, I'm open to that. On $100 per NOx emitting space heating appliance, and I remember the chair corrected me last time. I thought it was that's only 1%. I would be willing to move that up a little, not much. I know you, Heather, and you really examine the costs of consumers long term. I don't want to, but I don't mind going up 125, something small, because that's significant money for the people for rebates. So I wouldn't mind pushing it a little. I wouldn't go to 200, but from 1% to 1.25 is de minimis. So just let you know, I'm supportive of that because that would really help us. Hearing date. One of my council members from Glendale brought to my attention, he supports this, but he brought up there's a bill going through AB 306 in the assembly, which may impact, I think it's carried by the speaker, wanting to freeze all building code amendments or improvements starting in 2025 or 26. Maybe we can look at that bill, AB 306, and just pull it up quickly, but what he told me is kind of correct. So there's something going through it. If we can just look at that.
We'll look into that.
Thank you. And that's all.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none, we have 3 written reports. Next, do we need to have a presentation or discussion on any of those 3 items?
Larry, just one question for staff.
Yes, go ahead.
On the settlements, there was one there with the, pull it up here. It was with Chiquita Canyon, and I think Wayne and staff, every week I get the updates on Sunshine Canyon, Chiquita Canyon, and the sewer treatment plant Hyperion. I see a $307,000 settlement. What's happening with Chiquita? Because I know we've put these orders on abatement and they just keep, every week, sometimes I see 2 or 3 violations. What's the status?
Yes, thank you. Mayor, our settlement in this month for the Chiquita Canyon facility is for exceeding the permit limits on sulfur content of landfill gas that is being used in the flares. And that is a penalty that does not include the nuisance violations. We have had nuisance violations at this facility settled in the past, and presumably there will be more in the future. Jason, did you have anything to add about the facts?
Yeah, I can add. The landfill's going through a subsurface reaction. What that reaction has done is changed the nature of the sulfur compounds in the gas. So it's not hydrogen sulfide anymore. It's turned to dimethyl sulfide, which is harder to remove from the gas before it's combusted into in the flares. So that's the cause of the exceedance in our rule limits and the permit conditions.
And Wayne, just briefly, I know we're part of a working group trying to work with this. Is there any progress being made with the landfill? Or because I see a report every week, I read diligently, and staff goes out there, Jason, your staff, and I sometimes see 3 a week, sometimes 1. And what's the status? Because every once in a while I hear the grumbling from the neighborhoods up there.
We're still part of the working group. We're still continuing to work on it. I think that the reality of the situation is this is going to take a long time to address. And that's unfortunately the best that I can give you at this point, and just continue to work on it. And I think ultimately we'll do everything we can to get those emissions reduced as fast as possible. And we'll look to other agencies to also look at their authorities. And that's why we've been working with Cal EPA, with the Water Board and others.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Any public comment on our 3 written reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to other business. Any other business we need to consider? Seeing none, we'll go on to our general public comment for items not on the agenda but under the purview of this committee. Raise your hand. We have one. Al Sattler, go ahead.
I would like you to strongly consider opposing AB 306. That goes against all the arguments made today. We're talking about new construction. It's minimal expense to install zero NOx equipment as compared to NOx emitting equipment. In many cases, it might well be cheaper to install zero NOx. So I please ask you to take a strong position opposed to AB 306.
I'm sure it'll come before our legislative committee to take a position. Thank you. Next, we have Harvey Etter. You're muted, Harvey.
Hello, am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. I'm Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself. I'm founder director of the Public Solar Power Coalition and like-minded individuals and entities. We need more time. We need to stagger these meetings because there's another meeting supposed to be going on now. This meeting also, we cannot see the agenda. That's illegal. Okay. This is a captured agency. We brought this up. So is CARB. So is EPA. A Nobel Prize went out to a guy named Stigler in '81 at a Chicago school for captured agencies. Okay. The significance of this is staggering. This is premeditated murder. We're talking like 100 to 200,000 deaths in California per year. One guy said 1 out of 10 U.S. deaths. You see where that comes from? This is from the Lancet magazine, 200 years out of London, a state of the art from February of 17. that there's 1.1 to 1.5 million premature deaths in the country a year. We're 12% of the population. That's 150 to 180,000 deaths in California. The state of California uses 7,000 and 4 or 5 of that in the South Coast. And they value it has gone from 20 years ago in the 07 plan, 18 years ago, 3 million per premature deaths cost the society to 10, 12 million on the indirect source from the ports. So 1 million times 1 million deaths is $1 trillion. This is significant as all get out, and it's big.
Thank you for your comments, Harvey. That's all the public comment we have. Therefore, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sorry it went so long.